Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. My name is Lucas Turner. I'm a reporter for the Rio Blanco Herald-Times. Today we are kicking off our 2022 election candidate interviews. Today I'm going to be speaking with Virginia Love, also known as Ginny Love, successor to the recall of Gary Moyer. She is running on the primary ballot for June 28th against Doug Overton. And I guess before we get into questions, I just want to say welcome to the studio. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for asking me to come. I appreciate it.
I guess we'll go ahead and, get things kicked off talking about what the current situation is. So
Okay.
you're currently serving as a commissioner for Rio Blanco County. Is that right?
Yes, until the end of the year. When the recall took place, the successor would finish the term that Gary had. And then Gary did not wish to run again. And so then that position is what I'm running for the 4-year term. Doug Overton and I both are.
Okay. So I guess what motivated you to run to be the successor in the first place? And then I'm assuming that would extend through to doing it for the full term.
Right. Basically, I just saw the negativity that was going on in the county. I'd been very upset about that. I just felt like that we just needed kind of a fresh start, fresh ideas, and I wanted to go ahead and step up to do that. And I ran on being positive, and that's what I want to continue to run on, is that the positivity. I think you can have power and be positive and not have to be a negative individual. And I think that was a lot of the problem that was going on. It was brought out, that the county was just in a kind of a uproar. And I just wanted to come in and try to bring that down. So from this point on, I don't really want to hear anything about the negative things that were going on before. As a kid, when you had the little, you're too young to know this, but you used to have a slate and you would print on everything and then you lift up the little paper and whoop, it was gone. And I think that's what we need to do. We just really need to get some positivity back and let's go forward. We have to all learn from our mistakes that we've made in the past. Some may not call them mistakes. Some were, a lot of people were upset about the recall, but I think the people spoke and the majority of the people said we weren't happy where things were. So I just want to be a positive voice going forward.
I have a really vague memory of the clean slate thing, but it's barely there.
Real little.
So, all right. Well, I guess we could talk about specific ways that you sort of, I guess, perpetuate positivity is what I'll say. But maybe before we get into that, we could just talk about, from our perspective at the newspaper and broadly, any person in the county or any resident who you would serve, any constituent that you would serve. There's the concept of transparency and people knowing what you're doing. If you're elected as an official, you're being paid by the taxpayers.
Right.
They're your boss in that way. So I'd like to talk about sunshine laws.
Okay.
What are the sunshine laws from your understanding, and how do they apply to you as a sitting commissioner and, as a future commissioner if you are elected?
Okay. With regards to the sunshine laws, obviously we're not allowed to make any decisions, whether it be two of us or all three of us together in a conversation. That includes emails. You cannot email and make a decision by email. It's okay for us to ask questions of one another or to if there's a situation going on, what information have you gathered? But we can never, ever make a decision unless it's in the, once we're in a meeting, then we can do that. But it has to be our BOCC meeting. And even in the workshops, those are just for discussion. They're not for decision making. The decisions are made at the BOCC meeting.
And I mean, to me, it seems straightforward, but why do you think the value is of that?
It's extremely important because if you don't, you run the risk of maybe just two people running an entire county or making decisions behind closed doors. You've got to be open and transparent, and that's one thing that I ran on for the successor part. And really, I didn't really run on the successor. My name was out there, and I let people know that if you chose to participate in the recall, because it was such a divisive situation in the county. And I really think that that the people did speak, and so we're going to go from that point on. I do believe that it's important to be transparent. Like right now, already, I've been in one whole week, but I have a little calendar on my door that has where I'm going to be. And if it's at a meeting, it's what it's going to be for, the nature of the meeting. If I'm meeting with a constituent, I won't be putting the name of that constituent down, just simply because I feel like that they have that right to be able to talk to me. But the reason behind it or something like that. So if someone wanted to talk to me about the voter integrity or about, funding that we do as a commissioner, that would be written down as the reason. And I believe that it's really, really important to do that before you have a meeting, to let people know. So if they walk up and look at my door and they say, oh, you're going to have a meeting about water, the return flows from the White River, I would love to be able to ask this question, or for you to ask or find this out. And that's something I want to bring change, and I don't know how you go about that, whether the other two commissioners have to agree to do that. But when we have our BOCC meetings, they ask, what have you done? I think we also need to ask, and what are you going to be doing as well? What are you working on?
Okay. I was going to save this question for later, but since you mentioned it. In your opinion, is there evidence of election fraud in Rio Blanco County?
No, there is not, in my personal opinion. I think that the whole thing behind this was more at a national level. And I think even our outgoing commissioners, both of them made that comment that they did not believe there was any voter fraud in Rio Blanco County. As to why they decided to defund it, you would actually have to ask them on that, I guess. But my only concern, in which I want to look into that, is will our votes be counted in November as a county? We can use that machine up until the general election, and then it goes away the way it stands right now. So those are things that have got to be, I need to find that question out for the voters. I mean, how horrible that would be if we weren't allowed to use our votes. If Rio Blanco County would be like, nope, they didn't have an electronic machine.
Yeah.
The other thing I've actually been looking into are alternatives machines to see if there's anything out there on the market that is available, but they're so expensive that, our county won't be able to afford that. The other thing I need to look into more is to see what the expense is going to be to the county to do the hand voting and the hand counts. The way it sits right now, that's where we're going to be. And do we have people that can take a week off of work? 10 people, and however many people it takes to do that. And again, I'm still looking into that. I've been here a week, so
yeah, no, it's definitely a can of worms.
Yes.
For sure, because we do get into all these other questions about, like you mentioned. I guess just to clarify, are you saying that there may be potential, or you're wondering what the effect is going to be of not using the designated machine as required by the state?
Yes. And when we were at our state assembly, the Republican state assembly, they voted there and said that that the county should do a hand count on that. That was a resolution that was passed. And I can see, I think both would be amazing. I mean, if you could do that, but I don't know that I think in essence, if the machines were done and there was the integrity of them, they have ways of checking them prior and then afterwards. And so I don't know. I think this was more of a national thing personally. I don't think it had anything to do with us locally, which is concerning to me that we allow a national situation to come in and turn our county upside down.
Yeah.
That's concerning. I think that we need to take care of Rio Blanco County first and foremost. Be available. I mean, not available. Be aware of what's going on at the state and national levels, obviously. But I think as a county, we need to focus on what is best for Rio Blanco County.
Okay. So doing what's best for Rio Blanco County, I guess what things do you want to do that is beyond, I guess, the run-of-the-mill commissioner work, if that makes sense?
Okay.
Like what, and it doesn't even have to be that, I guess. The question, that I had was, what would you do differently than past commissioners? And so I guess I'm interpreting that into, because all commissioners are going to pass certain resolutions. They're going to do public hearings. They're going to go through these procedural things. You talked about positivity already. Right. I'm just wondering, on a day-to-day, and you've already kind of got to some of these things, mentioning the thing about having your calendar. Mm-hmm. But what are some other, I guess, thoughts about how you could bring your own sort of positivity and management style to the county, if that makes sense?
Okay. I think that COVID really put a kink in a lot of things, but I also think there were some positive things out of the COVID. It let us know that we can do Zoom meetings. We don't have to be flying all over, going to a lot of meetings that probably were expensive in the past, that we can do Zoom meetings, and I think that part is good. So I would like to see us probably do more Zoom meetings. Obviously, there are times when you have to be in person. State legislation, when they're doing the bills and all of that, I think you have to have boots on the ground there. The other thing is, from the positive standpoint, is the transparency and the accessibility. I will be in my office. That's something new that has been there, and it's nothing against the other commissioners. It's just something I felt was important from my standpoint, was to be available to the people and to the employees. So I have office hours, and I will either be in Meeker or I will be in Rangeley unless I'm attending a meeting somewhere. And again, those will be posted on that door, so people can come up and see, hey, she's in this meeting today, or at least I know she's here in Meeker. The availability of that, I think, is important, not only just, like I said, for the constituents, but for our employees. Really important to be available, and I'm being paid a salary to work. So I just feel like, personally, I felt like it was important to be there on those hours from 8 to 5 or 10 to 6 or 7 to 11, whatever is needed to get the job done. That's what I want to do.
Okay. So from a, I don't know, I guess from a, okay, to be more specific, I guess, in terms of, how your, how your governing affects the county, or how managing employees affects the county, I want to talk a little bit about finances and revenue. So what would you do, I guess, to bring new revenue streams to Rio Blanco County, if that's something that you've thought about?
I have. I think it's very, very important to protect what we have now. We need to be very well aware of what's going on at the state for any bills that are going to come down that are going to affect us, our rural way of life. We run on a whole different engine than the cities, and I think it's so important for us to fight for that. One thing that was mentioned to me was I went to a meeting about the water, return to the water flow of the White River, and they are going to allow logging again in the forest. Well, that's great, but we don't have anything local anywhere near, so to take the logs. And so there's a possibility maybe of having something out there that somebody could put together to bring something like that back to this area, or a pellet process, for wood pellet stoves, something like that that we can look into. There's a lot of grant money out there. We have a grant writer now. I'm sure she'd like to keep super busy. And so I would love to have her look and see what's available out there for us to bring in new revenues. Alden on the Wolf Creek project said that at a AGNC meeting the other day that there was going to be 300 new jobs if this thing gets up and going. That in itself is like, where are we going to put these 300 people? So we need to be looking at housing, affordable housing. The state has grant funding for rural communities for that, as well as the childcare and all of those. So are we just having workers come in here? Will it be families that want to move here? How many would be permanent on that? So there's a lot of different avenues that we need to look at. Always keeping our options open. Always don't. I am one of these people that, if you have an idea, bring it to me. There's no such thing as a bad idea. It's just maybe the way we need to make it work and make it happen. So I'm open to ideas and, I know there's a lot of innovative people in Rio Blanco County. So we need to listen up and let people come and talk. And that's the other thing, the reason why I have my doors open, so to speak, is so that people can come in and talk to me. And I think once they realize that I really am going to be there, they will come. Okay. At least I hope they do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's always nice.
And that's on both ends, because my office will be at the Rangeley Chamber of Commerce. There's a little office in there. There's no windows, but it's okay. I love my office now. It has lots of windows. But that's where I will be down there. And the reason I chose that particular office base in Rangeley was because I can be there after hours. It's totally accessible for wheelchair and everything, and right in the center of town. And so that was important to the people when I've been down talking to people in Rangeley, that they said, please just be a voice for us. And I said, absolutely. I'm a Rio Blanco County Commissioner. I'm not a Meeker Commissioner. Right. So that's really important for me to let them know that I'm there for both ends, all people.
Okay. On more specifics within the county, what are your thoughts on this discussion around county manager / administrator? Do you think that's something that's needed? Is it something that you'd like to learn more about, or what are your general thoughts?
Yes. I have just been briefly, that's been brought to my attention. I think the first thing that I would like to do would be to go back and have a meeting with all of the department heads. There has been a change in the commissioners. Is that good enough for them, or do they still feel like they need that buffer? And I think it's really, really important for our employees to know that that we're there for them. The elected officials have, they're even. We're not over elected officials. We cannot tell elected officials how to run their offices. Only anything that has to do with the money coming in. That's where the commissioners have a say-so. But I think it's really important for the department heads to be able to come to us and say, this is what we need. This is what we're lacking. This is what we would like to have. And I definitely think we have to go back and revisit that. And if they feel like it's something that would benefit them and increase the morale, as well as the just the continuity of our offices. I think when you have negative things going on, nobody's going to get much work done.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm so passionate about being positive. When you're positive, everybody's excited to get something done. We can work together and we have a goal. And instead of, I've been working, I've got 60 hours. Nobody's going to do this for me. We're short staffed. So a lot of those things I would like to visit with them and say, hey, what do you guys need from us? What can we do to better serve you as employees as well?
Okay. So if that meant a manager / administrator, like if all the people in the departments were saying, yes, please do this, then it sounds like you would go with what they were asking for.
Yeah, I think that it would benefit the morale. And, I think we would have to be very specific in the job requirements for that and tailor it to what the people need. And also, the commissioners ourselves discuss that, and with the elected officials too, because it's an all-encompassing situation. So, but it's something that I think we need to look at. There used to be one. I think it was a budget cut situation, is why there isn't one anymore. Maybe, I'm not sure on that. Mm-hmm. But I think it's something we can look at and see if it would be beneficial to the county and to the employees, so that you can increase the production. Okay.
I have two more questions. One, we've talked about kind of broadly. We kind of keep coming back to it.
Okay.
So I'm going to save that one, and we can maybe wrap up with it.
Okay.
This next question is again, it's more specific, so that's why I want to do it first. Sort of as, I guess, a microcosm of what's happening in the state, lack of housing and childcare mm-hmm. is, becoming more of a problem for people in the county, even for current county employees and prospective employees. So the question is, are there ways to address those issues through county government?
Yes, I've actually had a phone call from someone who's involved at the state level, and said that they have a lot of grant money that's available for rural communities for this exact thing. Again, you have to have, you can't expand, you can't have anything come into either one of our communities much right now, because we don't have the housing. You look on the paper and there is nothing to rent. There's some houses to sell that are coming and going. But I think overall we really need to address that. And the childcare situation has long been a problem. I know when I worked at the hospital, of course, my kids are grown and gone, but there's many, many employees at the hospital that they couldn't take the job because they couldn't find a babysitter. And so that is really, really important. I think it is an issue. And with housing and the childcare, and also don't forget the elderly and all of this. We have a long waiting list up at the wing, at the Wellbridge wing, people trying to get their loved ones in there because they have an amazing facility there. But I think we need to look at some also care for them as well. The assisted living situation needs to be looked into. And I think, these things all cost money. So, of course, everybody's like, oh, no, wait. But I think there's also ways around that. And we just need to be innovative. We need to be positive. We need to look into that. And back when I was a dispatcher, if the worst I could ever get was no on somebody that back in that day, you could actually look in to see if somebody had a warrant or whatever without a cause. Now you can't do that. But back in the day, the worst case scenario was, nope, they're good. So, you're like, or the best case scenario, whatever you want to look at it. But but I think that we just have to be open and have those conversations. And it's going to take the schools, it's going to take the hospitals, it's going to take the federal government, the BLM and Forest Service. And I'd like to bring all of that back together again, too. I know at one time they had an all-encompassing meeting with everybody that were players in the county. And I think we need to bring that back, because I think it's time for us to get back to that and look and see and not have duplicating issues being looked into when maybe one entity can do that and say, hey, we're already looking into housing, okay? So we'll take the lead on that, and have another entity say, well, we'll take the lead on childcare, and all of us work together. Communication, transparency, that's huge.
And positivity is important.
And positivity.
For being able to communicate with someone.
Yes, absolutely.
Not starting from a negative point. Okay. How do you envision the role of a commissioner within the county, including interacting with the public, with staff? And then how do you envision that role outside the county at a state and national level?
Okay. Of course, I think we've already touched on that as far as I have an open door policy, and people are willing, they can come in and talk to me. That's so important to remember, that I am not a commissioner by myself. I was elected by the people. The people have the say so. And for them to know and understand that they truly are welcome in my office, and I think that's going to help us. I think the more people that can give ideas out, the better. So I'm really about being open arms, open doors, saying, hey, you guys come and talk to me. Bring me your ideas, and bring the other commissioners' ideas as well. And we'll all, get those together and see where we can go with that. As far as at a state level, it's very, very important that we stay up on what the legislation is doing and the laws. And I have some good rapport with some of the state legislators and senators. I've also known some of the national, your federal level. And I think it's important for us to keep in contact with them, because then that way they will give you a heads up too. If they hear something coming down the pike in their world, they'll say like, oh, hey, we better let Rio Blanco County know about this. So that's important to have those doors, open both ways, and we can have someone to go to and say, look, we're struggling here with this, what can you do to help us? And then they can come back as well and say, hey, there's this bill coming in. Yeah, you guys might want to be there to know about that. So again, the same old thing I keep harping on over and over is that communication, and just being able to talk to one another and keep open minds.
Okay. And I guess that actually reminds me of a question that I skipped over, which, you mentioned people at the federal or state level that you've known or may potentially worked with in the past. So my question then relating to that is, what experience do you have that qualifies you for this position?
For this position, I think the county commissioner, you've got to have a diverse background, which I think I do. I've been involved in, I've always worked with the public. From the time I was my first job as a lifeguard, okay? That was my first job. You work with the public. You have to learn how to get along with the public. And I think that is key in this position, because you represent the constituents. And if you don't have a good rapport with the people and they know that they can come and talk to you, there's going to be things that are going to be dropped, and there may be great ideas and great possibilities that the county can be doing that won't happen. So I think that's probably one of my major ones, is that just people know me. They know that I'm willing to listen to them, and they know that I'm not going to shut them off with their ideas. And there's been a lot of times when, you just are chatting with somebody and you think you have this all in your mind of how it is. And by the time you talk with the person that has a completely different perspective on it, both of you are going, oh, wait a minute, I didn't quite understand that whole thing. So, and that's good. And I think that is one of my key things, is that I've always been able to talk to people of all walks of life, my kids used to always say, "Mom, you tell us not to talk to strangers, but you do all the time." That kind of a thing. I usually don't know very many strangers. So.
Yeah. It's hard to have strangers when you've
Yeah.
been in an area like this for so long.
That's true. That's true.
Okay. Well, that's basically everything I had. I guess I would reiterate, at least for now, that you are a sitting commissioner for Rio
Yes.
Blanco County. People can come and talk to you.
Absolutely.
Whether they want to talk to you about the term that you're currently serving, or if they want to talk to you about why, if they want to ask questions. I ask these questions, but I guess what I would say to anybody listening is, if you have a question, and if you're watching or listening to this and you have a question for Ginny, you should go ask her. Sounds like
Yeah, right.
you're available.
The only thing I want to make really clear is they cannot ask me anything about campaigning while I am in the courthouse. That's a big no-no.
Interesting.
So, no, you have to be. So, I actually
That's good
had
to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had a constituent the other day call and ask 2 questions about business and said, then I wanted to talk. And I said, nope, can't do that. I'm
Okay.
in my office. So they have
So-
to catch me after hours. And I
see.
call it after hours. I will not be campaigning from 8 to 5. That could put me in a situation where I can't get to see as many people as I'd like to see. But I feel like that my hours, at least from 8 to 5, should be left available for the people to talk about county business.
Okay.
And then after hours is when you will see me out and knocking on your door and everything. But, and just, getting ready for that June 28th.
Okay. It's coming right up.
It is, in fact.
Well, once again, speaking today with Virginia Love, also known as Ginny Love, sitting successor to the recall, running for the Rio Blanco County Commissioner seat in the primary ballot for June 28th against Doug Overton. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I really appreciate you asking me to be here.